The security footage showed my husband laughing, actually laughing, while I sat 3 feet away, believing he was dying. But let me back up, because this story, this absolute masterpiece of deception, deserves to be told properly. My name is Victoria Sterling, and I make my living exposing financial fraud for Fortune 500 companies. You'd think someone who spends their days hunting down elaborate schemes would be immune to deception. You'd be wrong, dead wrong. Because 3 weeks into my husband's recovery from what I thought was a devastating motorcycle accident, I discovered I wasn't the hunter in this story. I was the prey, and the predators, they were sleeping in my guest room and holding my hand while they planned to destroy my life. Let me paint you a picture of my life before everything went to hell. I was 34, living in a converted warehouse loft in downtown Portland, married to a man I thought I knew. James Sterling, yes, I took his name like some starry-eyed romantic, was everything I thought I wanted. Charming without being slimy, ambitious without being ruthless, and just damaged enough to make me feel needed. How perfectly he played that last part. James worked in tech consulting, always jetting off to client meetings in Seattle or San Francisco. The irregular schedule, the last-minute trips, the phone calls that couldn't wait. It all seemed so legitimate, so important. I handled our finances because, well, that's what I do for a living. He handled everything else because he was better with people. What a joke that turned out to be. He was better with people, all right. Better at manipulating them, better at reading their weaknesses, better at making them feel special while he picked their pockets. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 3. Our relationship had that comfortable rhythm that people mistake for happiness. I worked my structured days, he worked his chaotic ones, and we met in the middle for dinner and Netflix. It wasn't passionate, but it felt safe. God, how I've learned to hate that word. The call came on a Tuesday at 2:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was reviewing a particularly complex embezzlement case when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Sterling, this is Dr. Martinez from Oregon Health and Science University Hospital. Your husband has been in a serious accident. The world tilted. James had been riding his motorcycle to a client meeting. Something about a server migration that couldn't wait. A semi-truck had clipped him on I-84. Shattered pelvis, broken ribs, possible internal bleeding. The words blurred together into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I found him in the ICU, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical precision. His face was bruised, his left arm in a cast, and both legs were immobilized in some medieval-looking contraption of metal and pulleys. "Victoria," he whispered when he saw me, his voice cracked and weak. "I'm so sorry. The bike. I didn't see the truck until." I held his hand and told him everything would be okay, that we'd get through this together, that I'd take care of everything. Everything. What a loaded word that turned out to be. The doctors painted a grim picture. Months of recovery, possible permanent disability, astronomical medical bills that insurance would only partially cover. Dr. Martinez spoke in careful, measured tones about managing expectations and adjusting to new realities. I nodded and took notes like the good little wife I was. I asked about physical therapy timelines and home care options. I researched wheelchair accessibility and disability benefits. I did everything a devoted spouse should do. What I didn't do was ask why my husband's accident happened on a road he had no business being on, at a time when he should have been in a client meeting that I later discovered never existed. Within 48 hours, our lives were invaded by an army of helpers. James's sister, Sophia, flew in from Denver. She was one of those aggressively helpful people who somehow made you feel guilty for not needing more help. Always asking what she could do, always hovering, always there. "You look exhausted," she'd say, studying my face with theatrical concern. "You can't keep this up. James needs you strong." Then there was Trevor, James's business partner. Young, eager, with that particular brand of millennial confidence that makes you want to check your wallet after shaking hands. He assured me he'd handle all of James's client obligations, that I shouldn't worry about the business side of things. "James always said you were the smart one with money," Trevor would say with that practiced smile. "He's lucky to have someone who can handle the financial pressure while he focuses on healing." How thoughtful of him. How convenient. The medical team was led by Dr. Sarah Powell, a no-nonsense orthopedic surgeon who spoke in clipped, efficient sentences. She explained that James's recovery would be long and complicated, months of bed rest, followed by extensive physical therapy. There was talk of permanent mobility issues, of lifestyle changes, of a future that looked nothing like the one we planned. I took a leave of absence from work. I moved into the hospital room, sleeping in a chair that seemed designed by someone who'd never actually tried to sleep in it. I measured my days in medication schedules and visiting hours, in small improvements and setbacks that felt monumental. I thought I was being a good wife. I thought I was proving my love through sacrifice. I was actually being played by experts. Looking back, the signs were there from the beginning. But when you're running on 3 hours of sleep and hospital coffee, when you're watching someone you love struggle with basic functions, you don't notice the inconsistencies. You don't question the performance. James's pain seemed to follow a schedule. Intense and dramatic when I was in the room, manageable when the nurses checked on him alone. His appetite was non-existent during visiting hours, but somehow he never seemed to be losing weight. And his phone, God, his phone became like a third person in our relationship. Before the accident, James was casual about his phone. He'd leave it on the counter, ask me to check his messages, hand it over without a second thought. Now it lived under his pillow, always face down, always on silent. When it buzzed, he'd silence it immediately, claiming it was just work stuff that could wait. "I don't want to think about business right now," he'd say, looking at me with those wounded puppy eyes. "I just want to focus on getting better." Such a dedicated patient, such a committed performance. Sophia noticed everything, or at least she acted like she did. She'd give me these knowing looks, these little nods of understanding. "You're doing so much," she'd whisper. "James is so lucky to have you. Not every woman would sacrifice like this." The word sacrifice came up a lot in those conversations. How I was sacrificing my career, my health, my own needs for James's recovery. How that's what real love looked like. How some people just weren't built for this kind of commitment. I ate it up like candy. Because if I was sacrificing, if I was suffering, then I was proving something, right? I was earning my place in the story. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't the hero of the story. I was the mark. Trevor started bringing up money more frequently. Casual mentions of mounting medical bills, of insurance complications, of the financial strain this was putting on everyone. He'd shake his head sympathetically and mention how lucky it was that I had that beautiful loft downtown. "Real estate is so hot right now," he'd say, as if the thought had just occurred to him. "If you ever needed to liquidate assets, now would be the time." Liquidate assets. Like my home was just another line item on a balance sheet. 3 weeks into this nightmare, I was barely human. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours straight since the accident. I was living on vending machine food and sheer stubbornness. My boss was sending increasingly concerned emails about when I might return to work. My friends had stopped calling because I never answered. I was the perfect victim, isolated, exhausted, and completely focused on someone else's needs. That's when Nurse Patricia Williams saved my life. Patricia was the night shift supervisor, a woman in her 50s who'd seen enough hospital drama to write a book. She was efficient, professional, and completely unimpressed by emotional displays. She did her job and went home. She didn't get involved in patient-family dynamics. Until she did. It was 3:17 a.m. on a Thursday when she came in to check James's vitals. I was dozing in my chair, that half sleep you get when you're too tired to stay awake, but too anxious to really rest. She moved around the room quietly, checking monitors, adjusting 4 lines. As she passed my chair, something crinkled against my hand. A piece of paper, folded small and pressed into my palm. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge what had happened. She just raised one finger to her lips, a clear warning to stay silent, and continued her rounds. My heart hammered, so loudly I was sure it would wake James. I waited until Patricia left, then crept to the bathroom to unfold the note under the harsh fluorescent light. "Check tonight's security footage. Room 314. He's not what he seems." The words were written in careful block letters, like someone trying to disguise their handwriting. My hands shook as I read it again, then again. He's not what he seems. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life shifted on its axis. The careful routine I'd built, the sacrifice I'd been so proud of, the future I'd been planning, All of it suddenly felt like a house of cards in a hurricane. I didn't confront James. I didn't ask questions. I didn't cry or scream or demand explanations. Instead, I did what I'd been trained to do my entire adult life. I looked for evidence. The next morning, after making sure Sophia was settled in with James and Trevor was handling his business calls, I told them I needed to stop by my office to handle some urgent client matters. They were so understanding, so supportive of my dedication to work even during this difficult time. Such caring family members, such devoted friends. I drove straight to my office and called Alex Brown, a cybersecurity specialist I'd worked with on several fraud cases. Alex owed me favors, and more importantly, he knew how to access things that normal people couldn't access. I need to see hospital security footage, I told him without preamble. Victoria, what's going on? I think my husband is lying to me. I think he's been lying to me about everything. There was a long pause. Some things, once you see them, you can't unsee. I understand. 2 hours later, Alex sent me a secure link with a warning, watch this alone, and maybe sit down first. I locked my office door, closed the blinds, and clicked play. The footage was black and white, taken from a ceiling-mounted camera in James's hospital room. I watched myself on the screen, tired, small, devoted, adjusting his blanket before leaving for the night. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. For a moment after I left, nothing happened. James lay still, breathing steadily, looking every inch the injured patient. Then his eyes snapped open. Not slowly, not groggily, like someone waking from medicated sleep. They opened sharp and alert, scanning the room to make sure he was alone. He pushed himself up on his elbows with fluid, confident movement. No wincing, no hesitation, no sign of the excruciating pain he'd been describing to me for weeks. My breath caught in my throat as I watched him swing his supposedly shattered legs over the side of the bed. The movement was smooth, practiced. He reached under his pillow for his phone and started typing rapidly. The son of a bitch was texting. A few minutes later, the door opened. Sophia walked in carrying a bag from a local restaurant, the expensive Thai place downtown that James loved but claimed he couldn't stomach in his condition. "Coast clear?" she asked, closing the door behind her. James laughed. Actually laughed. She's so predictable. Went straight home to research physical therapy equipment. They unpacked the food like they were having a picnic. James ate with obvious enjoyment, complaining that he was getting tired of pretending to have no appetite. Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I'd been afraid to even adjust the pillows for fear of causing him pain. "How much longer do we have to keep this up?" Sophia asked. "Not long. Trevor says she's already talking to real estate agents. Once the loft sells, we can wrap this up." The loft. My loft. The converted warehouse space my parents had left me, the only thing of real value I owned outright. "She's so easy to manipulate," Sophia continued. "All that guilt about being a good wife. It's almost sad." James shrugged. "She makes good money, but she's boring as hell. This way I get the payout without having to pretend to love her for the rest of my life." The video continued for another 20 minutes. They talked about James's gambling debts, about the people he owed money to, about how my insurance policy would cover the medical expenses, while the house sale would handle everything else. They discussed their exit strategy, their plans for after the divorce, their relief that I was too trusting to ask difficult questions. When the footage ended, I sat in my office chair and stared at the blank screen. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't collapse into tears. I felt something much colder and much more dangerous. Absolute clarity. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt sharp. I wasn't looking at this as a betrayed wife anymore. I was looking at it as a forensic accountant who just uncovered the fraud of the century. And fraudsters, no matter how clever they think they are, always leave trails. I spent the next 3 days conducting the most thorough investigation of my career. I traced James's financial records, his phone records, his travel history. I discovered that his business trips corresponded perfectly with visits to underground poker games and illegal betting operations. His client meetings were actually sessions with loan sharks and bookmakers. The motorcycle accident? Staged. James had crashed the bike himself in a carefully chosen location, timing it perfectly to create maximum damage with minimal actual injury. The medical records showed injuries consistent with his story, but they were self-inflicted. A desperate man's desperate gamble. Trevor wasn't just his business partner, he was his accomplice. The tech consulting business was barely legitimate, existing mainly to launder gambling winnings and provide cover for James's real activities. Sophia had been in on it from the beginning, playing the concerned sister while helping to manipulate me into the perfect position. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. But here's the thing about being really good at uncovering financial crimes. You learn to think several moves ahead. And while they'd been planning their con, I'd been building something they never expected. A trap. I continued playing the devoted wife, the concerned caregiver, the woman who would sacrifice anything for love. I brought James his favorite magazines, adjusted his pillows, listened to his complaints about pain and boredom. But I also started making strategic moves. I met with a divorce attorney, quietly, carefully, during my supposed work meetings. I documented everything, the security footage, the financial records, the evidence of fraud. I moved my most valuable assets into accounts they couldn't access. I changed passwords, updated beneficiaries, and created a paper trail that would protect me when everything came crashing down. Most importantly, I started feeding them exactly what they wanted to hear. I've been thinking about what Trevor said, I told James one afternoon, making my voice sound reluctant and worried. About the medical bills, about our financial situation. James's eyes sharpened with interest, though he tried to hide it behind a mask of concern. Victoria, I don't want you to worry about money. We'll figure something out. But the insurance isn't covering everything, and your recovery is going to take so long. I let my voice trail off, looking appropriately overwhelmed. What are you thinking? Sophia asked, leaning forward with barely concealed eagerness. Maybe we should consider selling the loft. I know it was my parents' place, but it's just a building, right? Your health is more important than real estate. The relief in the room was palpable. James reached for my hand with tears in his eyes. Such a touching performance. Are you sure? I know how much that place means to you. You mean more to me than any building, I said, squeezing his hand. I'll call the realtor tomorrow. Hook, line, and sinker. I scheduled the house sale for a Friday afternoon. I told James and Sophia that the buyer wanted to close quickly, that we'd have the money by the end of the week. They were practically vibrating with excitement, though they tried to hide it behind expressions of gratitude and concern. What they didn't know was that I'd invited some additional guests to this particular performance. At 3 p.m. sharp, 3 men in expensive suits walked into James's hospital room. They weren't real estate agents. They were representatives from the Nevada Gaming Commission, accompanied by a detective from the Portland Police Bureau's Financial Crimes Unit. The change in the room's atmosphere was immediate and electric. James, who'd been sitting up chatting with Sophia, immediately threw himself back against the pillows and started moaning dramatically. Who are these people? I'm in too much pain for visitors. The lead investigator smiled coldly. Mr. Sterling, we're here about your gambling debts. Specifically, the ones you've been trying to pay off through insurance fraud. The color drained from James's face. Sophia pressed herself against the wall, her eyes darting toward the door like a trapped animal. I don't know what you're talking about, James whispered, still playing his role. I've been in an accident. I can barely move. That's when I stepped forward and connected my phone to the room's television screen. Funny thing about hospital security cameras, I said, my voice steady and calm. They record everything. I pressed play. The footage filled the screen. James laughing, eating, walking around the room with perfect mobility. Sophia bringing him food and discussing their plans. Their casual conversation about manipulating me, about selling my house, about how easy I was to fool. The silence in the room was deafening. James tried to speak, but no words came out. Sophia started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of panic, of a plan falling apart, of consequences finally arriving. The investigators watched without comment until the video ended. Then the lead detective shook his head and chuckled. In 20 years of financial crimes, I've never seen someone fake a disability so thoroughly. This is going to make one hell of a case study. James was arrested for insurance fraud, conspiracy, and a dozen other charges related to his gambling activities. Sophia was charged as an accomplice. Trevor, when they tracked him down, turned out to have his own outstanding warrants. The medical expenses they'd been planning The insurance company was very interested in recovering their money. The gambling debts James had been trying to pay off, still there, still growing, still attracting the attention of some very unpleasant people. As for me, I kept my house, my job, and my dignity. The divorce was finalized within 6 months. Hard to argue for alimony when you're serving time for fraud. People ask me if I feel guilty, if I regret exposing them so dramatically, so publicly, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is simple: no. James didn't lose me because of one mistake. He lost me because he chose deception over honesty, manipulation over respect, and greed over love. Sophia didn't betray me in a moment of weakness. She spent months planning my destruction while accepting my hospitality and my trust. Trevor didn't get caught up in something bigger than himself. He was an active participant in a scheme designed to destroy my financial security and emotional well-being. They made their choices. I simply made sure those choices had consequences. 6 months after the trial ended, I met someone new. David Rodriguez, a fellow forensic accountant who understood the value of honesty, transparency, and mutual respect. He never asked me to sacrifice my career, my independence, or my sense of self for his comfort. Our relationship built slowly, carefully, on a foundation of trust that was earned rather than assumed. When I told him about James, about the fraud and the betrayal, he listened without judgment and never once suggested that I should have seen it coming or known better. Trust isn't naive, he told me. Trust is a gift. When someone abuses that gift, the failure is theirs, not yours. If you're listening to this story and recognizing pieces of your own life, hear this clearly. You are not responsible for other people's deceptions. You are not weak for trusting. You are not cruel for protecting yourself. Love doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't demand endless sacrifice or silent endurance. Real love, the kind worth having, asks you to show up as yourself, not as a diminished version designed to make someone else comfortable. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Because at the end of the day, the only person you're truly responsible for protecting is yourself. Everyone else, they're responsible for the consequences of their own choices, even when those consequences arrive with security footage and handcuffs. If you enjoyed our story, please don't hesitate to hit the like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell so you'll know when the next video is available. Here's another video to watch.